I was 30 years old, a Marine for a full decade, and had just wrapped up 6 grueling months stationed in Iraq. In the 8 years Jennifer and I had been married, she'd always been firm whenever the subject of children came up. Not going to happen, she'd say every single time. She was never shy about her feelings on it. Raising kids wasn't something she wanted. Not now, not ever. And yet here she was, holding on to me like her entire world was crumbling, begging for the very thing she'd sworn she never wanted. Her arms trembled around me, her tears dampening my shoulder, and all I could do was hold her tighter and let her cry it out. The air inside the house carried a faint new scent, not unpleasant, just different. Probably a new air freshener, maybe some candles she'd bought. The furniture, too, wasn't quite the same. Chairs at slightly different angles, a lamp swapped to another corner. To anyone else it would have been nothing, but when you've lived years where noticing details meant the difference between life and death, small changes scream at you. Of course, sweetheart, I murmured into her hair. But before anything else, let me show you something. She pulled back, her green eyes meeting mine, the same eyes that had caught me off guard back in college and made me fall hard. They were swollen from crying, yes, but there was something else too, not just sadness, something sharp, hidden fear maybe, or guilt. What is it? She asked softly. Later, I told her, brushing her hair back. First, I need to clean up. 6 months of desert dust doesn't come off easy. She gave a small nod and stepped back, hugging herself like she was cold. That's when I saw it, subtle, but they're all the same. The faintest curve to her stomach beneath her loose sweater. I'd memorized every line of Jennifer's body over the years. We'd been together too long for me not to notice something new. She was pregnant, had to be at least 3 months along. You've been eating well while I was away? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Too well, she said with a little laugh, though it didn't sound genuine. Stress eating. I missed you so much. I smiled faintly, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I missed you too, but the truth was I hadn't missed her distance. The last few months of calls, her attention was never fully on me, always glancing at her phone, always hurrying off somewhere. When I'd ask about her job at the insurance office, she'd brush past the subject. When I asked about coworkers, she'd steer the conversation elsewhere. Then there was the email. It had landed in my military inbox 3 weeks before I was set to come home. No name attached, no greeting, just a blunt message. Your wife isn't eating alone. Attached was a single photo. Jennifer, stepping into a hotel with a man I didn't recognize. Dark hair, sharp suit, a gold wedding ring glinting on his hand. I wanted to delete it, pretend I never saw it, but deep down, I already suspected. Her distracted behavior, her clipped conversations, they all made sense in a way I hadn't wanted to admit. Now, standing here in our own home, listening to her brush off the changes in her body as stress eating, I knew the truth, and I was glad I'd made the calls I'd made. We'd met back at the University of Kansas. I was 21, she was 19. She studied business administration. I was knee-deep in ROTC. She used to joke she loved men in uniform, but only if they promised never to drag her around the country as a military wife. I'd promised, I'd kept it. 10 years in the Marines, and we never left Kansas City. She got her steady job at Coldwin Insurance right out of college, climbed her way up to claims adjuster, and she thrived on the stability. When I deployed to Afghanistan years ago, she'd handled everything with ease. When Iraq orders came, she kissed me goodbye and swore she'd be here waiting. For 3 months it was true. Her emails were long, her calls warm. She'd even told me about the new supervisor, David Patterson, a married man with kids who'd transferred from Chicago. But by the 4th month, things shifted. Her emails grew shorter, her calls less frequent. She always seemed tired, too busy. If I asked about Patterson, she brushed it off quickly, her voice higher, nervous. The photo in that anonymous email didn't lie. It showed them holding hands outside the Marriott. She was in the blue dress I'd bought her, time-stamped in the middle of a Tuesday workday. Suspicion turned into certainty when I hired a private investigator. Cost me $800, but it was worth every penny. For 3 weeks, he followed her. Lunchtime meetings that stretched 3 hours, twice weekly hotel visits, photos of her slipping out of David Patterson's apartment on Saturday mornings, when his wife was out at yoga with their daughters. Then came the CVS receipt pregnancy test, purchased 4 weeks before I came home. Right when she started talking about how much she missed me, the investigator's final package was waiting under my truck's windshield when I landed back in Kansas. Photos, bank slips, medical records, a detailed timeline of every lie, every deception. Medical reports confirmed what I already knew. 12 weeks pregnant, ultrasound images, proof carved in black and white, proof that the child wasn't mine. I sat there in the driveway for an hour, staring at the evidence. Jennifer had been calculated. She waited until I was overseas to start the affair. Waited until she was pregnant to end it. Waited until I came home to try and sell me the story of miracle timing. But the woman waiting inside my house didn't know me anymore. She thought I was still that trusting young man who married her. She didn't realize war changes you. That 6 months in Iraq sharpens instincts you can't ignore. I slipped the envelope into my jacket, walked back inside, and found her in the kitchen. She'd changed into something more flattering, showing off the very body that betrayed her. She was cooking dinner, pretending everything was normal. "How's the truck?" she asked lightly, not even glancing back at me. "Fine," I said flatly. "Just unloading my gear." "Good. Dinner'll be ready in 20 minutes. I studied her, memorizing the scene, because in 20 minutes, nothing about our life was going to look the same again. "Jennifer," I said quietly. She turned, wooden spoon still in hand, her face paling as she saw the seriousness in my expression. "Yes. We need to talk." Her lips trembled. "Talk about what?" I pulled out a chair and sat down slowly. My eyes never left hers. "About your pregnancy." Her eyes widened. "How did you? I mean, I was going to tell you. I just found out myself." "When did you find out?" "Yesterday," she said quickly. "I took a test yesterday morning. I was going to surprise you with dinner and then tell you the news." I nodded like I believed her. "That's wonderful timing. How far along do you think you are?" "I don't know it. Maybe a few weeks from when you were home on leave." "February," I said. "I was home for 12 weeks in February. Right. February. She was gripping the spoon so tightly her knuckles were white. "It must have happened then." I stood up and walked over to her. She flinched when I put my hands on her shoulders, but she didn't pull away. "Jennifer," I said gently, "I need you to be honest with me." "I am bung honest." "Are you sure? Because I've been thinking about the timeline, and something doesn't add up." Her breathing got faster. "What do you mean?" "Well, if you conceived in February, you'd boot for and 1/2 months along, but you'll look more like you're 3 months. Maybe 3 and 1/2. I don't know what you're talking about. I just found out yesterday." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out one of the photographs. It showed her walking out of the women's health clinic downtown, dated 3 weeks ago. She was clearly showing in photo wearing maternity clothes. Jennifer stared at the picture for a long time. When she looked up at me, there were tears in her eyes. "Gabriel, I can explain." "I'm sure you can, but first, let me show you something else." It pulled out another photo. This one showed her holding hands with David Patterson as they walked into the Marriott. Jennifer's mouth fell open. "Where did you get these?" "Someone sent me an email while I was deployed. Anonymous, just a photo and a message that said, 'My wife wasn't eating alone.'" "Gabriel, please. It's not what you think." "What is it then?" She set the spoon down on the counter and wrapped her arms around herself. "David and I became friends while you were gone. He was going through problems with his wife. I was lonely. We started having lunch together, and it grew into something more. But it's over now. It's been over 4 weeks. When I found out I was pregnant, I ended it. I realized what I really wanted was a family with you. I pulled out the medical records. According to this, you're 14 weeks pregnant. That puts conception sometime in late May. I left for Iraq in April." Jennifer stared at the papers in my hands. Her face went from pale to gray. "I hired a private investigator," I said. "He's very thorough, Gabriel. Please. I know how this looks, but how it looks is that you've been having an affair with your married supervisor for 4 months while I was serving my country. How it looks is that you got pregnant with his baby, and now you're trying to trick me into thinking it's mine." She started crying then, real tears, not manipulative ones from earlier. "It never meant for this to happen, but it did happen. And instead of being honest with me, you decided to lie. Because I love you, because I want this to work. You love me, but you've been sleeping with another man for 4 months. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake, but the baby isn't mine." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "You don't know." I pulled out the timeline the investigator had prepared: hotel receipts, apartment building, security footage, credit card records showing meals for 2 at romantic restaurants. "Actually, I do know that because you've been with David Patterson at least twice a week since I deployed. Because the conception date lines up perfectly with when you started staying out late on weeknights. Because you've been lying to home for months." Jennifer sank into a chair and put her head in her hands. "What are you going to do?" "That depends on you." Jennifer looked up at me with red swollen eyes. "What do you mean?" "Iman, you have a choice to make. You can keep lying to me, or you can tell me the truth about everything. I told you that I had an affair. I'm pregnant. I ended it because I realized I made a mistake." When did you end it? 3 weeks. I pulled out another photograph. This one was taken 2 days ago while I was still in Iraq. It showed Jennifer and David Patterson leaving his apartment building together. She was wearing the same maternity top she'd worn to greet me at the door. Try again, I said. Her shoulders sagged. Okay, I didn't end it 3 weeks ago. When did you end it? Yesterday, when I found out you were coming home. So, you've been with him this entire time? Yes. And the baby is his? She nodded without looking at me. Yes. Does he know? Yes. What does he plan to do about it? Jennifer started crying again. Nothing. He said he can't leave his wife and kids. He said I was on my own. I sat down across from her. So your plan was to come home, seduce me, and trick Minto thinking the baby was mine. I didn't know what else to do. I'm 3 months pregnant with nowhere to go. David made it clear he wasn't going to help me. I panicked. How long have you been planning this? Since I found out he was pregnant. But Gabrielle, I swear, part of me really does want this to work. Part of me really does love you. Which part what? Which part of you loves me? The part that's been lying to me for 4 months. The part that's been sleeping with another man while I was getting shot at in Iraq. The part that was planning to trick me into raising his. She didn't answer. I pulled out bank records. Your credit card show charges at Victoria's Secret, expensive restaurants, hotels. You've been spending money we don't have on your affair. I'll pay it back with what you're selling. You've been taking half days off work to meet David, according to the investigator. Your supervisor at Coldwin Insurance has been asking questions about your attendance. Jennifer's face went white. How does he know that? He talked to your coworkers. Apparently, you and David haven't been as discreet as you thought. Everyone in your office knows about the affair. That's not true. Susan Phillips in accounting told him she'd seen you living hotels together. Janet Morrison in claims processing said you'd been acting strange for months. Even the security guard in your building noticed you were staying late with David after everyone else went home. Jennifer put her hands over her face. Oh God, it gets. David's wife knows too. Her head snapped up. What? Catherine Patterson, she's known for 2 months. She hired her own private investigator. You're lying. I pulled out a letter from a jacket pocket. She wrote you this. She asked my investigator to give it to you when the time was right. Jennifer took the letter with shame. As she read it, her face went from white to green. When she finished, she dropped the letter on the table. She's filing for divorce. Jennifer whispered. And she's naming you as the other woman. She's going after David for everything he's worth. His house, his retirement, his savings. She's also going to make sure your affair becomes public record in the divorce proceeding. This can't be happening. It is happening, and it's about to get worse. What do you mean? I pulled out the final document from the envelope. I've already filed for divorce. Jennifer stood at the divorce papers like they were written in a foreign language. When 2 weeks ago from Iraq, my lawyer filed them while I was still deployed. You can't do this. I already did. And according to Missouri law, Adulta Yoffick's property division, since you've been using marital funds to support your, and since you've been lying about paternity, I'm entitled to most 04 assets. She looked around the kitchen like she was seeing it for the first time. This is my home, too. Actually, it's not. The house is in my name only. I bought it before we got married, and we never routed you to the deed. You have no legal claim to it. The furniture, my clothes, you can take your personal belongings. Everything else stays. Jennifer stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. This isn't fair. You can't just throw me out. I'm not throwing you out. You threw yourself out when you decided to have an affair while I was serving my country. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. She started pitching around the kitchen. David will help me once he sees these papers. Once he realizes his wife is leaving him anyway, he'll want to be with me. David Patterson resigned from Coldwin Insurance this morning. She stopped pacing. He cleaned out his office at 6 a.m. before anyone else got to work. Left a resignation letter on his supervisor's desk. According to my investigator, he's moving back to Chicago to stay with his brother. You're chilling. I pulled out my phone and shot her a text message from the investigator. It was time-stamped 3 hours ago, and included a photo of David loading boxes into a moving truck. He's gone, Jennifer. He left without telling you. She grabbed my phone and stared at the. He wouldn't just leave. Hellready did. His apartment is empty. His cell phone has been disconnected. He's not coming back. Jennifer sank back into her chair. I didn't understand. He said he loved me. He lied. But the baby is not his problem. He made that clear when he ran away instead of facing the consequences. She was quiet for a long time. When Sheffenly looked at me, there was then desperate in her eyes. Gabriel, please. I know I made mistakes. but we can work through this. I'll do whatever you want, just don't leave me with nothing. You didn't leave me with nothing when you decided to cheat on me. I was lonely, you were gone for 6 months. I was gone serving my country. While I was risking me life, you were risking our marriage. It meant nothing. It meant everything. It meant our marriage vows meant nothing to. It meant my service meant nothing to you. It meant I meant nothing to you. She started crying again. That's not true. Then why did you do it? I didn't know. I was scared and lonely, and David was there and he made me feel and now I realize I'm a deathy biggest mistake of my life. I stood up and walked over to the stove. The dinner she'd been making was burning. It turned off the heat and moved the pan. The divorce will be final in 60 days. I said you have until tomorrow to pack your things and find somewhere to stay. Gabriel, please. The locks will be changed tomorrow evening. I walked toward the door, then stopped and turned it back. One more thing. I'm keeping the photos in the medical records. If you try to claim the baby is mine for any legal purposes, I'll produce them in. She didn't say anything. She just sat there crying. I went upstairs to pack a bag. I'd stay at a hotel tonight. Let her have one last night in the house figure out her next move. It was more kindness than she deserved. But I'd always been too decent for my own good. That was about to change. 2 months later. I was sitting in my lawyer's office when Jennifer's at. She wanted to contest the divorce terms. She was claiming the baby might be mine after all, demanding a paternity test, asking for spousal support and part of my military benefit. Tell her no, I said. She's prepared to take this to court. My lawyer warned. Good, let's go to court. The hearing was set for the following Tuesday. Jennifer showed up 5 months pregnant, wearing a conservative dress and looking like the picture of an abandoned military wife. Her lawyer had coached her well, but I'd been preparing for this moment since the day I discovered her affair. When the judge asked for evidence regarding paternity, I presented the complete the photographs, the medical records, the timeline showing conception occurred while I was deployed. Jennifer's face went white as her lawyer viewed the documents. Your Honor, her attorney said, McLean admits to having an affair, but timing is very clear. My lord, the defendant conceived this child while Sergeant Rodriguez was serving in Iraq. Furthermore, we have evidence that she attempted to deceive him about paternity upon his return. The judge reviewed the medical records. Mr. Rodriguez, you were deployed from April through October. Yes, Your Honor. And according to these medical records, conception occurred in late May. Yes, Your Honor. The judge looked at Miss Rodriguez. Do you dispute these dates? Jennifer's lawyer whispered something to her. She shook her head. The court finds no biological relationship between Sergeant Rodriguez and the child in question, the judge announced. The divorce will be granted as filed with no spousal support or shared custody arrangements. Jennifer started crying. Her lawyer gathered his papers and stood up. Your Honor, he said, my client will need to arrange alternative housing. The defendant has had 60 days to arrange alternative housing. The judge replied, this matter is closed. As we walked out of the courtroom, Jennifer grabbed my arm. Gabriel, please. I have nowhere to go. I gently moved her hand. You should have oathed about that before you decided to throw away 8 years of marriage for a man who ran away the moment things got complicated. She stood there in the hallway, 5 months pregnant and completely alone. Part of me felt sorry for her, but mostly I felt relieved. 6 months after the divorce I heard through mutual friends that Jennifer had moved back in with her parents in rural Nebraska. Her father was a farmer who'd never approved of her city life anyway. She was working at a small town in Syracuse for half the salary she'd made in Kansas City, trying to save money for when the baby arrived. David Patterson's divs had been even messier than ours. His wife had taken him for everything he was worth. He'd lost his house, his savings, and his right to see his daughters unsupervised. The last I heard, he was working at Asmol Insurance Agency in Chicago, living in a studio apartment and sending most of his paycheck to his ex-wife. Jennifer had tried to contact him after the baby was born, but he'd refused to acknowledge paternity or provide any. She was raising the child alone in her childhood bedroom in a town where everyone knew exactly why she'd come home. As for me, I'd used my military benefits to go back to school. I was studying criminal justice, thinking about a career in law enforcement when my service was up. I'd bought a smaller house outside Kansas City, something that was completely mine. I was dating a woman named Sophia who worked as a nurse at the VA hospital. She understood military life, understood sacrifice, understood loyalty. Sometimes I thought about those 8 years with Jennifer, the good times, the dreams we'd shared, the future we'd planned together. But mostly, I was grateful that her betrayal had shown me who she really was before I wasted any more of my life with Samoyone, who saw my deployment as an opportunity instead of a sacrifice. I'd learned the difference between people woe support those who serve and people woe exploit their absence, and that lesson was worth more than the marriage I'd lost. In the months that followed, Jennifer faced the full consequences of her deception. She lost her well-paying job in Kansas City when word of her affair with the supervisor spread throughout the forcing her to return to her parents' farm in the middle of Nebraska, where job opportunities were scarce. And Arion knew her story. David Patterson abandoned her completely. His own marriage collapsed, leaving her to raise his child alone while he fled to Chicago to rebuild his shattered life. The small farming community where Esh grew up offered little sympathy for a woman who had betrayed a deployed Marine, making her both financially dependent on her aging parents and socially isolated in a place where a military service was deeply respected. Adultery was not easily forgiven. My military training had taught me patience and strategic thinking, skills that served me well in protecting myself from Samoyone who had mistaken my absence for opportunity rather than sacrifice.